Maya and Ryan had been friends for 7 years. They met in college during a group project and clicked instantly. Now, they were both 28, living in the same city, and their friendship had become one of those rare connections that everyone around them admired. Maya worked as a counselor at a youth center, helping teenagers navigate their problems. Ryan was an architect who designed buildings that made neighborhoods better. They talked almost every day, shared inside jokes, and supported each other through every up and down. But here's the thing about their friendship. It came with rules. Strict rules that they both agreed on years ago. They never spent time alone, late at night. They never talked about deep relationship problems with each other. They kept their hugs brief and friendly. These weren't random rules. They existed because both of them knew there was something underneath their friendship. Something they never wanted to explore. It was like having a beautiful garden with a fence around it. The fence kept everything safe and organized. Maya was engaged to a man named David. He was a lawyer, successful and stable. They had been together for 3 years, and everyone said they were perfect for each other. David was the kind of guy who remembered birthdays, planned nice vacations, and talked about their future with confidence. Maya's parents loved him. Her friends thought she was lucky. On paper, everything looked right. Ryan had a girlfriend named Jenna. She was a photographer who traveled the world capturing stunning images. She was adventurous, fun, and brought excitement into Ryan's life. They had been dating for 2 years, and she often talked about getting married someday. Ryan cared about her deeply. She made him laugh and pushed him out of his comfort zone. So why would two people in happy relationships need rules about their friendship? Because deep down, they both felt something they couldn't explain. It was like standing near a fire. You know it's warm, you know it's powerful, but you also know getting too close could burn everything down. One day, Ryan's architecture firm gave him a new project. They wanted him to redesign the community center where Maya worked. The old building needed a complete makeover, and Ryan was the perfect person for the job. When Maya heard the news, her stomach did a little flip. 3 months of working closely together. 3 months of daily meetings, planning sessions, and collaboration. She told herself it would be fine. They had their rules. They had their boundaries. Ryan felt the same mix of excitement and nervousness. He reassured Jenna that nothing would change. Maya told David it was just a work project. Their partners trusted them because, why wouldn't they? Maya and Ryan had been friends for years without any problems. The first day of the project started normally. They met at the community center early in the morning. Maya showed Ryan around, pointing out all the areas that needed improvement. The roof leaked in the east corner. The gym floor was warped. The counseling rooms needed better lighting. Ryan took notes, asked questions, and sketched rough ideas. They fell into an easy rhythm, the way old friends do. As the day went on, they got more excited about the project. Maya shared her vision for what the center could become. She talked about the kids who came there after school, looking for a safe place. She described how a better space could change lives. Ryan listened carefully, already imagining ways to make her dreams real. His mind filled with ideas about natural light, open spaces, and areas designed specifically for different age groups. Hours passed quickly. Before they knew it, evening had arrived. The center was empty except for them. They were hunched over a large table covered with blueprints, sketches, and notes. Maya had written down program ideas on colorful sticky notes. Ryan had drawn floor plans and elevation drawings. They were deep in discussion about the main hall when it happened. Ryan was pointing at something on Maya's notepad. He reached across the table to indicate a specific line she had written. At the exact same moment, Maya reached for the same paper. Their hands touched. Just their fingertips, really. The contact lasted maybe 1 second. 2 at most. But in that brief moment, something changed. It felt like electricity. Not the scary kind, but the kind that makes every nerve in your body wake up. Maya pulled her hand back as if the paper had burned her. Ryan froze, his finger still pointing at nothing. They both stared at the table, not at each other. The air in the room felt different suddenly, heavier and charged with something neither of them wanted to name. Maya cleared her throat and said something about getting late. Ryan quickly agreed, gathering his papers with unusual clumsiness. They said goodbye at the door, their voices too casual, too normal. Maya walked to her car feeling like her heart was beating in her ears. Ryan sat in his truck for 5 minutes before starting the engine, trying to understand what just happened. That night, Maya lay next to David in their bed, unable to sleep. David was already snoring softly, content and peaceful. She stared at the ceiling, remembering that 1 second when her hand touched Ryan's. Why did it feel so significant? It was just an accidental touch. Friends touch accidentally all the time. But she knew it wasn't just that. It was what the touch revealed. All those feelings she had kept carefully locked away for 7 years had suddenly burst into her awareness. The fence around the garden had just developed its first crack. The next few weeks were torture for both of them. They had to keep working together because the project couldn't wait. Maya would arrive at meetings with her professional face on, determined to focus only on work. Ryan would do the same, bringing coffee for both of them like he always did, acting like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. They both felt it. Small moments became loaded with meaning. When Ryan explained a design concept, standing close to show her the details, Maya became hyper-aware of the space between them. When Maya laughed at one of his jokes, Ryan noticed how her whole face lit up in a way that made his chest ache. They were careful never to touch again. It was like they had an invisible barrier between them now. And they both worked hard to maintain it. But working together meant talking. And talking led to deeper conversations than they had allowed themselves before. One afternoon, while reviewing paint colors, Ryan suddenly said something that had nothing to do with the project. He mentioned feeling stuck lately, like he was living a life that looked good from the outside but didn't feel right on the inside. He hadn't meant to say it. The words just came out. Maya understood exactly what he meant. She admitted that sometimes she felt like she was acting in a play, saying the right lines and hitting the right marks, but not really feeling connected to her own life. These weren't the kind of things they usually talked about. They were breaking their rules again, but differently this time. Not with touch, but with truth. As weeks passed, they found themselves staying later at the community center. There was always one more thing to discuss, one more detail to figure out. Maya stopped mentioning these late sessions to David. Ryan didn't tell Jenna he was spending so much extra time with Maya. They weren't doing anything wrong technically, but they both knew the secrecy itself was a betrayal. One evening, Ryan asked Maya a question that had been bothering him for weeks. Why had she said yes when David proposed? Maya looked surprised, then thoughtful. She took a long time to answer. Finally, she admitted something she had never said out loud before. She said yes, because David was safe. He was a good man, who offered stability and a predictable future. She said yes because she was 25 and felt like it was time. She said yes because everyone expected it. But she didn't say yes because her heart felt full and certain. Ryan felt something shift in his chest when she said this. He told her the truth he had been carrying for 7 years. He had feelings for her back in college. Real feelings. The kind that made him nervous and hopeful at the same time. But Maya was dating someone else then. And by the time they broke up, she was with someone new. Ryan convinced himself it wasn't meant to be. He built walls around those feelings and eventually met Jenna. He cared about Jenna genuinely. But if he was being honest, really honest, he had never stopped wondering, what if? Maya felt tears building in her eyes when he said this. She had felt it too, she confessed. During their junior year, She had started noticing Ryan differently. The way he listened when she talked. The way he made her feel safe and understood. But she was scared of ruining their friendship. She was scared of feelings that strong. So she dated other people, kept busy, and told herself friendship was enough. Over the years, she had almost convinced herself it was true. They sat in the empty community center, the overhead lights humming softly, both of them suddenly aware they were standing at a crossroads. Ryan moved closer. Maya didn't step back. They were inches apart now, closer than their rules ever allowed. The air felt electric again. Just like that first touch. They could hear each other breathing. One move, one choice, and everything would change. But then Maya stepped back. She said they couldn't do this. They had other people who trusted them, who loved them. They had built lives with those people. Yes, they had feelings for each other, strong feelings. But that didn't give them the right to blow up everyone's world. Ryan knew she was right, even though every part of him wanted to argue. They made a new promise that night. They would go home to their partners and really try. They would give their relationships honest effort. They would avoid working alone together. And in 3 months, if they still felt this way, if these feelings didn't fade, they would face it honestly. They would tell David and Jenna the truth. But they wouldn't be together in secret. They wouldn't be the kind of people who betrayed trust. They shook hands on it, a formal gesture that felt both silly and necessary. The handshake lingered a moment too long. Then, Maya grabbed her coat and left quickly. Ryan stayed behind, sitting in the dark community center, wondering if they had just made the bravest decision or the biggest mistake of their lives. The 3-month countdown had begun, and neither of them knew if they would survive it. Maya threw herself into wedding planning with an intensity that surprised everyone. She scheduled appointments to look at venues every weekend. She spent hours scrolling through dress designs online. She created detailed spreadsheets for the guest list, the menu, the music. David was pleased, thinking she had finally gotten excited about their wedding. Her mother was delighted, helping her compare florists and photographers. But inside, Maya felt like she was building a wall, brick by brick, trying to convince herself this was what she wanted. Every wedding task felt like a test. When she tried on dresses, she imagined walking down the aisle. But the face, waiting at the end, wasn't always David's. Sometimes it shifted and changed, and she would push the thought away angrily. When they toured reception halls, she forced herself to picture their first dance, their cake cutting, all the traditional moments. David would hold her hand and talk about their future with such certainty. He spoke about buying a house, having kids, growing old together. Everything sounded reasonable and good. So why did it feel like she was planning someone else's wedding? Ryan took a different approach. Jenna had a big photography assignment in Iceland, and Ryan decided to go with her. He thought maybe distance would help. Maybe being in a completely different place would reset his brain. They spent 2 weeks exploring glaciers, waterfalls, and volcanic landscapes. Jenna was in her element, camera always ready, capturing stunning images. Ryan tried to be present, tried to appreciate the adventure, but everything reminded him of Maya. A particular shade of blue in the ice made him think of her favorite sweater. The way light hit the water made him remember how her face looked when she was really listening to someone. He took a photo of the northern lights, and his first thought was wishing Maya could see them. Back home, both of them kept their distance. They texted only about work, and even those messages were formal and brief. Other people finished most of the community center project. They barely saw each other for 2 months. Maya told herself this proved the feelings weren't real. If they were truly meant to be together, wouldn't the separation be unbearable? The fact that she could function, could go through her days normally, meant it was just a passing attraction. At least, that's what she told herself at 2 in the morning, when she couldn't sleep. Ryan convinced himself of something similar. He reasoned that if he really loved Maya, he would have done something about it years ago. He was probably just scared of commitment with Jenna and projecting those feelings onto his friendship with Maya. It was a classic case of wanting what you can't have. Once the 3 months passed and they both stayed with their partners, this whole thing would fade into a weird memory they would laugh about someday. But then Maya's younger brother had a car accident. It happened on a Tuesday night. He was driving home from his college campus when another driver ran a red light. The call came while Maya was having dinner with David and her parents. The moment she heard the words, accident, and hospital, everything else disappeared. Her brother had mentored with Ryan during college. They had stayed close. Without thinking, without planning, Maya called Ryan first. He answered on the second ring. She couldn't even form complete sentences, just fragments about the hospital and her brother and fear. Ryan told her to breathe, asked which hospital, and said he was on his way. He didn't ask if she wanted him there. He didn't check if it was appropriate. Ryan arrived at the hospital before David did. Maya had texted David from the car, but he was in a dinner meeting across town. When Ryan walked into the emergency waiting room, Maya was pacing, her face pale and scared. The moment she saw him, something in her relaxed, slightly. He walked up to her, and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing. His arms went around her automatically, and he just held her, not saying anything, just being there. They sat together waiting for news. The doctors said her brother had a concussion and some broken ribs, but he would be okay. The fear slowly drained out of Maya, replaced by exhaustion. She leaned her head on Ryan's shoulder without thinking about it. He put his arm around her, and she felt safer than she had in months. It wasn't romantic in that moment. It was something deeper. It was home. That's how David found them when he finally arrived an hour later. He walked into the waiting room and saw his fiancée curled into another man's side. Peaceful, despite the circumstances. Ryan's head was resting against the top of Maya's head. They looked like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly. David stopped in the doorway, and something clicked into place for him. He had known, somewhere deep down, that something was off. But seeing them together made it undeniable. When Maya saw David, she sat up quickly, guilt flooding her face. She started to explain, to justify why Ryan was there first. But David held up his hand and stopped her. He walked over calmly and asked if her brother was okay. She nodded, telling him about the injuries. David listened, nodded, then turned to Ryan and thanked him for being there. Ryan stood up, feeling uncomfortable, and said he should go. But before leaving, David asked Maya one question. His voice was quiet but firm. He asked if she had ever looked at him the way she had been looking at Ryan. Maya opened her mouth to answer, but couldn't. The silence stretched on, and David nodded slowly. He had his answer. The next few days were brutal. David moved out of their apartment, taking only his clothes and essential items. He told Maya he wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse. He said he deserved someone who chose him first. Someone whose eyes lit up when he walked in a room. He said he had spent 3 years loving someone who was keeping a space in her heart reserved for someone else. Before he left, he hugged her and told her he hoped she would be happy. The kindness in his voice broke something in Maya. Jenna found out because Ryan told her. He couldn't carry the secret anymore. The morning after the hospital incident, he sat her down and confessed everything. Not that anything physical had happened, but that his heart wasn't fully in their relationship. Jenna cried, which Ryan expected, but then she got angry, which he didn't. She told him she had felt him pulling away for months. She had blamed herself, thinking she wasn't interesting enough or home enough. Now, she knew the truth. She wasn't competing with her own shortcomings. She was competing with a ghost, a what-if, a fantasy he had built up in his head. Jenna asked him if he thought Maya was perfect. Ryan said no. She asked if he thought being with Maya would solve all his problems. He said no again. Then why? Jenna asked. Was he willing to throw away what they had? Ryan didn't have a good answer. He just knew that pretending wasn't fair to either of them. Jenna left that day and never came back for her things. She had them shipped later through a friend. Maya and Ryan agreed they couldn't see each other. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. They had hurt people they cared about. They needed to figure themselves out individually before they could be anything together. Maya started seeing a therapist. In those sessions, she began to understand patterns she had never noticed before. She always chose safe relationships with men who were good on paper but didn't challenge her. She was terrified of wanting something too much because wanting meant you could be hurt. Ryan went to therapy too. His therapist asked him tough questions about whether he was in love with Maya or in love with the idea of her. Ryan had to sit with that. He realized he had been passive his whole life, letting things happen instead of making choices. He accepted the college his parents picked. He took the job his professor recommended. He dated women who pursued him. He had never actively chosen anything major in his life. Was Maya just another example of him wanting something because it felt forbidden? The months passed slowly. Maya quit looking at her phone every time it buzzed, hoping it was Ryan. She focused on her work at the youth center. She started a new program for teenagers, dealing with family problems. She went on dates with other people, though none of them went anywhere. She learned to be alone without feeling lonely. She learned to enjoy her own company. Ryan opened a small architecture firm with a friend. He took on projects that excited him instead of ones that just paid well. He went hiking on weekends. He read books he had been meaning to read for years. He learned to sit with uncomfortable feelings instead of distracting himself from them. He dated someone briefly, a teacher he met at a coffee shop. She was kind and funny. But after a few weeks, Ryan realized he wasn't being fair to her. His heart wasn't available. Their mutual friends were awkward around both of them. Some took sides. David's friends thought Maya was selfish. Jenna's friends thought Ryan was a coward. The community center project finished without Ryan's direct involvement. Maya heard through others that it looked beautiful. She wished she could tell him how much the kids loved the new space. Maya's mother was disappointed. She liked David and thought Maya had made a terrible mistake. She told Maya that love wasn't about butterflies and excitement. It was about partnership and commitment. Maya listened but didn't argue. She knew her mother meant well. But she also knew her mother had married for practical reasons and spent 30 years in a passionless marriage. Maya didn't want that life. Ryan's brother called him irresponsible. He said Ryan had sabotaged a good relationship because of some fantasy. He accused Ryan of being selfish and immature. Ryan took the criticism because some of it felt true. But he also knew staying with Jenna while loving someone else would have been more selfish. There were no good choices, only honest ones. A year passed. Maya considered moving to another city. Everything in her current life reminded her of the mess she had made. But her job mattered to her. The kids at the center needed consistency. Running away felt like another form of not choosing. So she stayed and built a life that felt more authentically hers, even though it was harder and lonelier than before. Ryan thought about calling Maya 1,000 times. He wanted to know if she was okay, if she still thought about him, if she regretted everything. But he forced himself to wait. They had promised themselves time to grow. Reaching out too soon would just be falling back into old patterns. 14 months after the hospital waiting room, Ryan got an invitation to a wedding. Their old college friend was getting married, and both Ryan and Maya were invited. Ryan stared at the invitation for a week before deciding to go. He figured enough time had passed. They could probably be in the same room as adults. Maybe they could even be friends again someday. He arrived at the wedding venue early, nervous in a way he hadn't been since high school. The ceremony was outdoors in a garden. White chairs lined up in rows. Flowers everywhere. Ryan took a seat in the back, thinking he could leave easily if things got awkward. Then he saw Maya walk in. She was wearing a simple blue dress. Her hair was different. Shorter. She looked good, healthy, more comfortable in her own skin somehow. Their eyes met across the garden. Neither looked away immediately. They just acknowledged each other with small nods. Ryan felt his heart speed up, but also felt a strange calmness. Whatever happened next would happen. During the ceremony, Ryan found himself glancing at Maya. A few times he caught her looking back. When the bride and groom exchanged vows, talking about choosing each other every day, Ryan saw Maya wipe her eyes. The reception was in a barn that had been decorated with string lights and wildflowers. Ryan got a drink and talked to old college friends. He was catching up with someone from their study group when Maya appeared next to him. She smiled and joined the conversation naturally. It wasn't weird. It was actually nice. When their friend left to get more food, Maya and Ryan found themselves alone for the first time in over a year. They talked about surface things at first. How was work? How was family? Maya's brother had recovered completely and was about to graduate college. Ryan's new firm was doing well. The conversation was pleasant, but careful. Then, Ryan asked if she wanted to take a walk. The barn was getting loud, and they both needed air. They walked along a path that circled the property. For a while, neither spoke. Then Maya started talking about therapy and what she had learned about herself. She explained her patterns, her fears, her tendency to choose safety over passion. She said the last year had been hard but necessary. She was learning to be the kind of person who could handle strong feelings without running away. Ryan listened, without interrupting. When she finished, Ryan shared his own journey. He talked about recognizing his passivity and working to make active choices. He mentioned the relationship that didn't work out because he wasn't ready. He said he had been in therapy too, dealing with his own patterns and fears. He admitted he had thought about calling her 100 times, but forced himself to wait because they both needed time to grow separately. They found a bench and sat down. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Maya asked the question that had been bothering her for months. Did Ryan think they had made a mistake? Did he regret how everything happened? Ryan thought carefully before answering. He said he regretted hurting Jenna and David. He wished he had been more honest with himself earlier. But he didn't regret telling the truth eventually. Living a lie would have hurt more people in the long run. Maya agreed. She said David had actually sent her a text a few months ago. He was dating someone new and wanted Maya to know he was happy. He thanked her for being honest. Even though it hurt, he said the breakup pushed him to find someone who really wanted him. Maya was glad David had found happiness. But it also made her think, had she and Ryan ruined lives for nothing? What if the feelings between them weren't as strong as they remembered? Ryan looked at Maya carefully. He said there was only one way to find out. They could try. Not jump into anything serious. Not make big promises. Just spend time together honestly and see what happened. They were different people now than they were a year ago. Maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe they had built up their connection into something bigger than it really was. But maybe they owed it to themselves to find out. Maya felt scared and excited at the same time. She had spent 14 months becoming okay with being alone. The thought of being vulnerable again terrified her. But she also knew that avoiding feelings because they might hurt wasn't really living. She asked Ryan what trying would look like. He suggested they start with coffee. Just coffee, once a week, as friends rediscovering each other. No pressure. No expectations. Just honesty. They went to coffee the next week. Then, the week after. The conversations flowed easily, but differently than before. They weren't hiding anymore. There was no fence around the garden. They talked about their fears openly. Maya admitted she was scared of losing herself in a relationship. Ryan admitted he was scared of disappointing people. They discussed what they wanted from life. Maya wanted to expand her youth programs. Ryan wanted to design buildings that served communities. Their dreams fit together nicely, but independently. After 2 months of coffee dates, they went to dinner. Then a movie. Then a walk in the park, where Maya's brother used to play as a kid. They held hands for the first time, and it felt both familiar and brand new. Ryan met Maya's parents again, which was uncomfortable, but necessary. Her mother was cold at first, but gradually softened when she saw how Maya smiled more. Ryan's brother remained skeptical, but agreed to give them a chance. 6 months after the wedding, they were officially together. It wasn't perfect. They still had arguments and misunderstandings. Maya sometimes pulled away when things got too intense, and they had to work through it. Ryan sometimes fell back into passive patterns, and Maya had to call him out. But they were learning. They were choosing each other actively, not falling into something by accident. Maya reached out to Jenna through a mutual friend, asking if they could talk. Jenna agreed, though she made it clear she wasn't interested in being friends. Maya apologized sincerely, not making excuses, just acknowledging the hurt she contributed to. Jenna listened and said she appreciated the apology, but needed Maya to understand something. Moving on from Ryan wasn't easy. Trust didn't come quickly anymore. Maya's actions had consequences beyond just their situation. Maya promised she understood, and they parted with some closure, if not friendship. 2 years after that first touch across the drafting table, Ryan and Maya stood at the community center, now fully renovated. It had reopened with a ceremony attended by families and kids from the neighborhood. The design was beautiful, exactly what Maya had envisioned. Ryan had worked with another architect to finish it, but his vision was still evident. They walked through the new spaces together, remembering how it all started. Maya said something Ryan had been thinking too. She said that one touch hadn't really broken their promises. The touch just revealed what was already broken. They had been making promises to protect themselves from the truth. The truth was uncomfortable and messy, but it was real. Ryan agreed. He added that the new promises they made to each other were harder, but more meaningful. They promised to be honest even when it was uncomfortable. They promised to work on themselves individually. They promised to respect the people they had hurt by building something genuine. Standing in the community center they had designed together, holding hands openly, they understood something important. The story wasn't about a perfect love that conquered all obstacles. It was about two people who made mistakes, hurt others, and had to rebuild themselves before they could be together. It was about choosing truth over comfort. It was about learning that real love isn't just a feeling but a daily decision to show up honestly. The ending wasn't tied up neatly with a bow. There would be more challenges ahead. But for the first time in their lives, both Maya and Ryan felt like they were exactly where they chose to be.